happening here tonight. We've got folks here in the room and we've got folks online. So if we could keep the murmur in the room as quiet as we can, that will be helpful for our folks online to make sure they can hear what we're saying. Right now everybody's getting a nice video of my chin. So that's lovely. I'm gonna try moving my computer back a little. And is this distance from the mic okay? Can everyone hear me? Great. And online, give me the thumbs up if you can hear me online. Wonderful. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. If I could get all of our federal candidates who are present tonight to come and take a seat up here. Thank you, candidates. And our lovely community guest speakers over here. Wonderful. Hello and welcome. It's a joy to share this space with all of you this evening. Tonight, you will hear from several community speakers and several candidates, and you'll get a chance to engage through roundtables and through a Q&A. So the Q&A is over here on the refreshment table for those in person. There's a little orange gift bag and some cue cards. So if you'd like to write your questions on those cards and pop them into that bag, we'll be choosing questions later in the evening for our candidates to answer. And if you have any particular district that you're in that you wanted to note on your question, you're welcome to do that as well. The bathrooms are, I don't know where the bathrooms are. Thank you. The bathrooms are down and to the left. For those of you in person, for those of you at home, I guess you know where your bathroom is. And if you need a little break or to decompress, you can just pop outside in the lobby area here outside the main room. And as you're leaving the room, if everything's okay and you just want to take a little break, just give us a thumbs up to the room as you're leaving. Otherwise, we will send a volunteer to check in with you and make sure everything is okay.
Candidates over there.
Candidates over here. For those online, if you have a question that you want to add to the Q&A, please put it in the chat, and we will include those as well. So if we could all just keep a little quiet here, there'll be plenty of time to engage. We'll even have a break to mingle. So we have people online and people in the room, and we just want to keep one conversation so that we can all follow what's going on. So we'll take a break around 8:30, but like I said, if you need to take a break before that, go ahead and take one. Give us a thumbs up if everything's okay as you leave the room. Okay, we stand here in full acknowledgement that this land has borne witness to genocide and occupation. The Damguk is the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk peoples. We also wish to acknowledge the Innu and the Inuit of the land colonially called Labrador. With this acknowledgement, we commit to resisting genocide and occupation everywhere. In Canada, in Palestine, in Congo, in Sudan, and beyond. We acknowledge the demand land back. We also acknowledge that the colonial nation of Canada was built and continues to thrive on colonialism, imperialism, and the enslavement and labor theft of people of African descent, the subjugation of women and gender diverse people, and the exploitation of waves of migrant and racialized peoples. We acknowledge that we must work together to end occupation, settler colonialism, imperialism, racialized capitalism, sexism, genocide, and all forms of racism, here on this land and everywhere. We acknowledge that we will never be free until all people are free. This land acknowledgement was borrowed with gratitude from the Anti-Racism Coalition of Newfoundland and Labrador. By visiting their Facebook page, you can get a copy of their candidate questionnaire. Please check it out and share it with your candidates. We encourage all candidates here tonight to respond to the Anti-Racism Coalition of Newfoundland and Labrador's candidate questionnaire. Thank you for participating in our All Candidates Town Hall. This town hall was brought together by organizers with the Youth Climate Corps campaign, Fridays for Future St. John's, the Mercy Center for Ecological Justice, and Friends and Allies. Our theme tonight is on the need for a just transition from fossil fuels and the potential of a Youth Climate Corps to kickstart that transition by offering any young person 35 and under a 2-year job training placement, helping communities navigate the climate crisis. These public jobs would be paid at $25 an hour and operate in service of Indigenous nations and municipalities at their leadership, empowering local needs and priorities, centering Indigenous knowledge and sovereignty, and building the fossil fuel-free future we all need to survive. The program we're fighting for is to be rooted in justice and offer capacity to strategically underserved, undervalued, and under-resourced communities through empowering and employing local youth to bring climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience priorities to life. The time for hesitancy has long since passed. We need political leaders who aren't afraid to be bold, who understand the urgency and scale of the intersecting crises we face. We need leaders willing to think and act big. Youth across so-called Canada have come together to demand an initial $1 billion investment to create the first 20,000 Youth Climate Corps positions this year. I ask every candidate here tonight, will you fight for this investment in our future? It is a mere 4% of the approximately $24.8 billion estimated by Environmental Defence Canada that Canadian taxpayers lost to oil and gas industry subsidies last year alone. It is equal to the money spent responding to wildfires in Canada this past year. We deserve more than governments who choose to protect shareholders over people. We deserve more than governments who allow the rich to burn the earth. And we deserve more than governments who twiddle their thumbs while the bottom falls out of the oil and gas industry, leaving workers in the lurch. We are running out of time to chart a new path. The stakes are so breathtakingly high. I am hopeful that the candidates gathered here tonight will rise to meet this generational challenge. We're about to hear from our first community speaker. After each community speaker, we will randomly draw a candidate to respond to that speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. One moment. Don't have my phone. I'm good for that. I just don't have the bio because it was on my phone. Bear with me for 1 moment. Technical difficulty.
That's a great picture of nice. I'm gonna stay up there.
Never goes exactly how you planned, does it?
Is anyone else boiling? Can I just ask that while we're waiting?
It's warm in here, isn't it?
Does
Okay.
anyone know something?
It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Seth Klein. Seth is the team lead with the Climate Emergency Unit. He is the author of the book, The Good War, Mobilizing Canada for the Climate Emergency. And he's one of the architects of the national campaign for a Youth Climate Corps. And I will pin Seth here so you can all see him. And I will turn down the volume right here.
All right, am I coming through okay, Leah?
1 moment. Oop, just 1 moment, Seth. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Good to be with you, Leah. Thanks for the invitation and the intro. I'm Seth Klein. I'm joining you from the other side of the country on the unceded territories of the Musqueams, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And just to say a little bit more about our vision for a Youth Climate Corps. As Leah said, first of all, we envision it as a 2-year job training program. So not like, there's many youth and student programs that are summer jobs, that kind of thing. We envision this as a 2-year program so that people can get fulsome training and accreditation, if not a Red Seal certification in some line of work, well on their way. And that it's really understood as both a call to serve and also a chance to get trained up in the kinds of jobs that are going to be vital in this task of our lives. The work that would be undertaken would really fall in 3 buckets, if you will. Bucket 1 is work doing emergency response in the face of what we know is coming, the forest fires, the floods, the heat bills. The second bucket of jobs is in building community and ecological resilience in the face of these events, whether it's silviculture work and forestry or other ecological restoration work, or just shoring up physical and community infrastructure to make our communities more resilient to what's coming. And the third bucket, really the most important, is work actually driving down our emissions. So that could be in renewable energy or in public transportation or in building retrofits, that kind of work. With all with this guiding principle that no one will be turned away. Folks, I think it's great, first of all, that you've gathered to have this conversation, and thank you to the candidates who are here. Our contention is that, particularly now in the face of the threat coming from the United States presidency, now is the perfect time for a new federal public program like this. It's really an idea that's purpose-built for this moment, giving young people a chance to find shared purpose as they mobilize in our collective defense. We have long been of the view that there are tens of thousands of young people across the country who get the emergency, who want to roll up their sleeves and serve and help us meet this moment. And for years, they've been wondering, where the heck is my invitation? The polling that we have commissioned nationally with Abacus reinforces that there are indeed hundreds, not tens, but hundreds of thousands of young people across the country who get the emergency and are waiting for their chance to enlist in a program like this. We need an audacious new public program that issues that invitation. And as we deal with the repercussions of the Trump attacks, it's going to be young people who are so often the last hired, first fired, who are going to be facing rising unemployment, and a YCC that trains them up in the work needed to de-link from the US and from fossil fuels is exactly what this moment calls for. So Leah, you wanted me to ask a question of the candidates. I will just reinforce what you said. What I'd love to hear from the candidates is, are you ready not only to commit to a starting investment of $1 billion a year, but will you join us in pressing the new government that's elected to make that kind of investment and to structure this not as funding for another nonprofit organization, but actually as a new public program to meet this moment? Thanks.
Thank you, Seth. All right, let's put our first candidate in the hot seat.
Use the bag.
We're gonna draw randomly so that it's all nice and fair and random. Our first lucky candidate response will come from Tom Osborne of the Federal Liberal Party. Is Tom here? Awkward. He did RSVP, so where are you, Tom? Let's try again. Next up, we've got David. David Brazel is here. Over to you, David. 2 minutes.
Thank you. And I want to welcome everybody and thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the discussion here on what's happening here. I represent the Conservative Party, and I have as a philosophy, and always have, worked towards not believing that our young people are our future. I believe our young people are our present, and they have to have a leadership role. They have to be given that, but they have to be given the resources and the ability and the supports and the encouragement, but the authority to improve our lives, to look at the immediate emergencies we have. And we have a number of them in this country. We have it around healthcare. We have it about sustainable employment. We have it about our environment. And to do that, we need to support programs that encourage them, give them a mentoring program, give them stability and longevity to do it. I've been a big proponent. I'm a former director of youth and career services for this province, and worked with many not-for-profits, from the T.I. Murphy Centre to Choices for Youth to Thrive St. John's and a number of other agencies, and see the value in young people taking a lead, but having the mechanism where they can actually put in play what the priorities are. And obviously, I feel committed to one of the priorities being our environment and how we get prepared for it. I worked very closely with the Conservation Corps for decades in my career. So I see the value of supporting this. You would have an advocate in David Brazel in supporting whatever happens. Whether I'm successful in getting elected or I'm still here as one of the community leaders, I will still do my part to advocate on behalf of that. But I do see the value of investing in a program like this to be beneficial not only for the leadership that we have in this room and we would have right across this country, but particularly in addressing particular issues that we have here about sustainable energy, clean energy, addressing our environmental challenges we have here, and getting the next generation of leaders ready to take over and make sure our policies reflect what people need in our society. So I'll end by saying you will have an advocate here to champion your causes without a doubt. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm sorry we only saw your chin on the online video. I've tried to move my laptop back a little, but for the candidates, if you want to stand back a little to get your face in the frame, I should have let you know. My apologies. Okay, our next community speaker is Jeff Ronan from the Mercy Center for Ecological Justice. Jeff is the Executive Director at the Mercy Center for Ecological Justice, Ecology and Justice. Through the field of regenerative agriculture, he helps members of our community connect with and understand the ecological issues we are all faced with today. And thank you to the Mercy Center for their organizing partnership on this event, and welcome to Jeff.
Oh, this is a wonderful angle. Hello, everyone. The Mercy Center for Ecology and Justice promotes the oneness of all creation. We see Earth itself as a living organism, and we recognize this gift of life, because life is a gift given to us nearly 14 billion years ago. And in that time, our Earth and everything we know as the natural world, including ourselves, has grown and evolved in harmony. A symphony of events and evolutions that has shaped our Earth and all life that is sustained by it. Over time, somewhere along the way, we forgot the tune. We forgot the melody of the natural world, and it's lost to us. And we have forgotten the steps that once guided our feet to dance upon the earth in harmonious existence. The music of the natural world has been drowned out by the grinding wheels of the industrial progress, silenced by the churn of the mechanized plow, and forgotten entirely in our goal for human supremacy. We have become deaf to our earth and its subjects in our narrow pursuit. Thomas Berry, the acclaimed cultural historian and self-proclaimed geologian, says our first steps toward a healthy and just world are to realize that the universe is a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. Majestic mountains and expansive forests have become mute obstacles in humanity's path. The mountains, seen as nothing more than mineral reserves to be blasted out and extracted, and the forests, measured not in their abilities to create habitat for Earth's creation, but measured in how many board feet of timber can be harvested for our benefit. The cry of the earth and the billions and billions of voices of the natural world have become inaudible to many humans. At the Mercy Center, we understand the cause of the problem that has brought us to where we are today is an attitude of separation, seeing Earth as a commodity, useful only for the unrestrained extraction of its resources, rather than thinking of Earth as a source of our very life, a womb that nourishes and sustains us like that of a mother, an Earth mother. The fragility of Earth and the need to rebuild our care and protection of people and planet with meaningful work that reconnects us with our common home has never been more important than right now. There is no separation between us and our planet home. We are intrinsically connected for soil, water, and air for our life. Without this kind of thinking, there is no future for our young people. What is being proposed is hard work. Hard work takes courage. So, if elected, do you have the courage to connect and commit to creating meaningful work with good green jobs for our youth to help address these immediate issues? Help us sing and harmonize with the earth and all creation once again. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Who's it gonna be? I just also want to let our candidates know, well, first of all, thank you so much for coming. It's so nice to have you here to discuss these important issues together. There's water here, should you need any. And if you'd like, you can signal to me to bring me some. Thank you to Cassie for fixing our angle. Next up, we've got Mike. Mike Keach from the Animal Protection Party. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
By the way, when you start getting closer to time, when you start doing this, I love it.
Okay. Yeah, hello. All right. Yeah, this is going to be easy. So the Animal Protection Party actually has environmental protection as one of the cornerstones of its platform. And it's easy enough to answer this because this is direct from our website. Canada and Canadians are among the world's worst per capita CO2 emitters. We say that we're a clean nation, but it's a bit misleading because we're only half of 1% of the world's population. So per capita, it's very bad. We're responsible for 1.6% of global emissions with only half a percent of the world's population. So that's about 3 times as much as the average. And it's a global plague. But what Canada can do, so what we are known for, is leading by example. And Canada has everything necessary to take on the challenge of reducing carbon emissions. We're one of the world's wealthiest nations. We have all the necessary fiscal and human resources and expertise. More importantly, we have some of the most land and the most water and natural resources of any country on earth. There are few nations that are better positioned to set an example and implement and showcase the many ways forward. Okay, and because we have so much access to water and land and natural resources, that's one of the reasons why we're so wasteful. We don't pay as much attention to it because we have such abundant. Okay, so we have all the resources, and we are positioned to set an example. So people look to Canada for the ethical example, for the way forward. We can make the necessary reforms to successfully defeat climate breakdown, and that will show other countries they can too. We can prove that we can reform a nation and economy to function successfully without dependence on fossil fuels as a source of energy or economic activity and get as close to zero emissions as technically possible. there's a lot more actually in our platform statement that I'm happy to show
There'll be
you guys
more
later.
time later for questions as well from the audience.
Yes.
Questions?
You'll all get some mingle time with our candidates as well. We'll be doing some round tables, so the candidates will be joining the round tables, so who knows who you'll end up getting to speak with. For the candidates, if you don't see Jude's signals, don't worry, because if it goes over the 2-minute line, we'll just kind of start politely clapping, and then that'll be like the signal. Our next community speaker is Megs. Megs is from Channel Port aux Basques, but has been residing in St. John's since 2023. They are a student activist who is about to begin a master's in marine biology with a focus on conservation efforts. They are passionate about climate action, human rights, and student rights. They are active in many organizations in St. John's, namely being the co-president of Fridays for Future St. John's. Fridays for Future was our other organizing partner for this town hall, so thanks to them and welcome Megs.
In 2022, I witnessed the destruction and trauma caused in my hometown due to Hurricane Fiona. My name is Meg Scott. I'm a queer 25-year-old master's student in marine biology, and I'm from Channel Port aux Basques. I moved to PAB when I was about 6 years old. I moved into East End Channel. With the sea in my backyard and my family being full of fishermen, I spent most of my life spending summers in a small fishing dory at my late great-grandfather George Scott's fishing stage. This fishing stage stood for generations and held lifetime worth of memories and mementos. It was built by my family, and it was a place where my family gathered and took part in the age-old tradition of fishing. I was so excited to spend time there with my father as a child, just as he did with his. This is where we kept family heirlooms, such as rods and guns, all things that are important to a hunting and fishing family. My dad had planned to pass these things on to his children, just as his father did with his. In September of 2022, part of my family's heritage was destroyed by the storm surge, and most of our family mementos were swept away with it. The stage feels small in comparison to other losses, but it has me feeling left empty. Between family stages, family homes, and even a life, unimaginable amounts of Port aux Basques and area were lost. The town was first told the storm would be no big deal, and would likely pass over us like many hurricanes did in the past. It was not until our mayor, Brian Button, got a call from Eddie Shear during his birthday supper explaining to him that the storm was going to be catastrophic. Brian hurried away from his supper to begin calling homes to evacuate anyone too close to the shoreline. The next 24 hours were horrifying. I was living 2 hours away going to school, but I watched as videos and photos flooded my social media. I was praying my home would be left still standing by the time the destruction was over. I felt helpless. My family was already displaced, as they had evacuated as soon as they woke up and saw the damage already happening. I watched videos of a neighboring apartment building being swept away by the sea in seconds. Almost 150 homes were ultimately destroyed by Hurricane Fiona. 86 initially were destroyed, another 57 had to be torn down due to damage. Generational homes, gone in a moment. This number doesn't include fishing stages or steads, places that in small town Newfoundland mean gathering and family ties as well. I feel heartbroken for all that was lost. My neighbors, my friends, my family, all witnessed destruction and loss that no one should have to face. There was money given to those who lost their homes so they could rebuild away from the shoreline. My family's fishing stage was destroyed and little amount of money was given to rebuild. Not enough. So we are left with an empty lot where our family used to gather. We may have only lost a stage, but we also lost our sense of safety. After the storm, the sheer amount of despair and loss resulted in loads of mental health crises. People felt isolated, like everything they loved was gone. We as a community tried to stand united, but it's hard when there are limited resources and people felt like they couldn't use them. Generation of memories gone in the blink of an eye, all caused by an extreme weather event. These events will not stop. They're only going to get worse. And that's because of decades of inaction to fight climate change. I want there to be a just transition into greener energy. I want there to be better resources and plans in place for extreme weather events, specifically for coastal communities. I want there to be enough money to help rebuild all of what was lost, including fishing stages, though it'll never be enough to fix all of what is gone. How could we have been better prepared? Why weren't people evacuated for the last possible moment? So I'm asking you, what resources can we have in place for the next time this happens?
Thank you so much for sharing that, Megs. All right, who will respond to Megs? Mary Shortle, St. John's East candidate for the NDP.
Thank you. 2 minutes is never enough, but I do want to say Happy Earth Day to everybody, because it is no coincidence that we're here today, I don't think, on this day. And I was reminded earlier that even the Pope, and who just passed away, felt that this was such an important issue, that it was the first time the Catholic Church had ever addressed these in such a formal way. And it talks about not just the financial repercussions and the cultural repercussions and all that, but it's also a moral obligation on us, I think. And Jeff, to your lovely way of saying how important it is that we work together to do this. And to all of you, because in your own way, I think you're describing things that have a common solution. And the one thing that really resonates with me about the whole thing that happened in Port aux Basques was what else was lost. It wasn't just, sadly, there was one person who passed away, but also the culture was lost, the people's livelihoods were lost, people's possessions were lost, and so it really is urgent. And we're going to see more catastrophic weather events, fires and floods and everything else that happens. And there's an obligation for us, I believe, to, as governments, to respond to that as well, because people are looking to their governments for relief from those things. And so how are we going to be prepared to do that? And any type of climate reaction or climate action plan, I believe, has to begin with how are we going to do that? How are we going to rebuild? How are we going to make sure that we rebuild green? How are we going to transition away from fossil fuels, for example, into renewable resources? And who's going to build the infrastructure, and who's going to be prepared to do all that, and where's the money coming from? So all of those are great big questions. This Youth Climate Corps is a perfect response to all of that, because the three pillars of it that Seth explained are things that address all of that. Emergency response, employing young and youth into building our community, and to drive down emissions. So those are important things.
Thank you, Mary. Next up on our community speakers list, we have Dome Lambeda. Dome, they, them, holds a Bachelor of Science in Geography with a minor in Oceanography from Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador. Dome collaborates with organizations like the Anti-Racism Coalition of Newfoundland and Labrador, ARC-NL, where they lead a project addressing barriers in healthcare for migrants. They are active in the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, conducting research on healthcare barriers and working with groups like Quadrangle NL and the YWCA. Passionate about creating inclusive community spaces, Dome envisions a better future for marginalized individuals in Newfoundland and Labrador. Please join me in welcoming Dome.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dome. I am a migrant from Ecuador, and I have been residing in Newfoundland since 2017. Being from one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, I grew up with an admiration and love for the forest. My childhood was filled with family trips all over Ecuador, hiking the mountains and enjoying the beautiful coast. A particularly important instance in my adolescence was when my classmates and I visited Esmeraldas, where I learned how people lived off the mangrove forest, gathering shellfish from the mud, sharing and eating freshly caught fish from the river. If I close my eyes, I can still feel the heavy mud on my boots. Yeah, go for it. Okay.
I'm so sorry, Tommy.
Then, yeah, don't let it die. Okay.
Oh, so sorry.
Should I start over? No.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Please, by all means, start over.
Yeah, no, okay. All right. Yeah, I already introduced myself. Being from one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, I grew up with an admiration and love for the forest. My childhood was filled with family trips all over Ecuador, hiking the mountains and enjoying the beautiful coast. A particularly important instance in my adolescence was when my classmates and I visited Esmeraldas, where I learned how people lived off the mangrove forest, gathering shellfish from the mud and sharing and eating freshly caught fish from the river. If I close my eyes, I can still feel the heavy mud on my boots and the satisfying sweat from a hard day's work. I was so grateful to have learned from this community on the importance of mutual aid and co-living with the environment, two very similar qualities to NL rural fishing ports. Now I want to talk about my country for a very specific reason. In 2008, it was declared that in the Ecuadorian Constitution that nature, or the term used by many indigenous people which views nature and humans as one, Pachamama, has a right to be respected in its existence. Having had this law passed when I was 10 years old, you can imagine how much shock and disbelief I felt when I continuously saw the repeated efforts of Canadian and American-owned oil companies drilling for oil, and unfortunately consistently creating environmental disasters that severely impacted the environment and therefore the sustainability of these communities. Just this year, there was a catastrophic oil spill in Esmeraldas, contaminating 3 rivers, 9 beaches, large plots of agricultural land, and along with it all, the beautiful mangrove forest. The repercussions for the local and larger community are unsurmountable. It is heart-wrenchingly devastating to think of the families who took care of me and my classmates all those years ago are now going through immense crises and will suffer through the after effects for generations to come. I am incredibly distraught by the images of the mangrove forest covered in the black substance. Worst of all, I can't comprehend how these life-ruining environmental catastrophes do not point out the obvious to us. The continuous resource extraction and lack of consideration for communities are killing us all. We need to stop drilling. If these tragedies can happen in my country where we have constitutional rights for nature, what progress can we hope to make here? I am disappointed that offshore drilling projects keep getting approved, and today I ask that we don't wait until all the fish are gone or a big oil spill. What are you going to do to start transitioning to green jobs and green energy? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tome, and my sincere apologies for interrupting you. Thank you. The computer is plugged in. We've got this wire hanging about here, so if our candidates could come around this way to avoid this.
I will give the 30-second warning this time.
Let's see who will respond to Domain. We already had Mike. Did I put the other ones back in here? Sam. Welcome, Sam Crete, St. John's East candidate for the Communist Party.
All right, I got 2 minutes. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all out here today. So how do we transition to green energy? I think one thing that stuck out to me, Dome, about what you said was your relationship to nature in Ecuador. It is very inherent to the human condition for us to have a very personal, it's as if it's a person in your life, that connection to nature. That's very inherent to us. And I think that it is very clear to me as a communist where that division with nature comes from. And I think it's no surprise to say that it is a capitalist economy that has created these conditions. Our relationship to nature is terrible because of a capitalist economy. I think everybody in this room, that will not be news to you. But sometimes I get a little bit disappointed because we identify capitalism as the problem, and then we propose reforms to capitalism that get swept away 3 years later. We need a bigger change than just reforms, right? We can transition to a green economy, absolutely, but fundamentally we need to transition to a socialist economy in order to actually mend our relationship to nature. That is what it actually takes to address all of these issues, right? Again, right, we're proposing reforms. Yes, we should be investing into this sort of project for a youth climate corps, absolutely. We can get politicians who could say, we're going to dedicate $2 billion to this. But then the Conservatives come in 4 years later and wipe it all away. So it didn't really make a difference. And just to say that really, in order to really actively, until we are advocating for a socialist economy, a fundamental change to our capitalist economy, it is hard to take some climate action seriously because you're not dealing with the fundamental problem. All right, that's all I'll say on that.
Thank you very much, Sam. Our next community speaker is Daniel Smith. Daniel is a settler in Dongguk who has lived all over the island and has called St. John's home since 2008. He is currently the Just Transition Coordinator with the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor, with over 20 years of experience in the student movement and the labor movement. An injury to one is an injury to all is a philosophy that guides his work in ensuring nobody is left behind. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks, Leah, and thanks everybody for coming out tonight. Thanks all the candidates for taking time to hear from everybody. As Leah said in my bio, I kind of grew up all over the island portion of Newfoundland and Labrador. I spent my formative years on the west coast and the Great Northern Peninsula. In 1997, I lived in Sanatney. And if you ever lived in Sanatney before, if you've ever been to Sanatney, you know how beautiful it is up there, and there's an inherent connection that people have with the land and the ocean. That's how people make a living. So people have lived there for 10,000 years. It's a beautiful little community. And there was one day in particular, I was outside playing with my friend Chris. Me and Chris were really good friends, and we were enjoying that freedom of playing outdoors in St. Anthony. He lived on the north side of the harbor, and we were kind of like in back behind his place playing in the Barrens, and he asked me if I wanted to stay at his place for supper. And I said, sure, of course. I never turned down craft dinner and hot dogs. So we were in having supper, and his parents both, and this is 97, so it was 5 years after the collapse of the cod fishery. Both of his parents were involved in the fish harvesting. His father, Chris's dad was a fish harvester, and Chris's mom worked in the fish plant in St. Anthony. And so his father had been laid off for several years and was unable to find work, and his mother had found work as a custodian in one of the schools. We were eating supper, and Chris's dad had the TV on. He was out in the other room watching the news, and out of nowhere, he starts screaming like a sailor, and he stood up and he threw a beer at the television. What in the name of God is going on? So we all kind of went out and looked, and there was a politician from Ottawa on talking about all the support that fish harvesters in Newfoundland and Labrador were getting as a result of the cod collapse. And I mean, that was not the story in their household, in Chris's house. And I remember being very afraid, very scared, but then sad that that was the impact that our economy had on my friend's family, and then very angry to think that some politician in Ottawa was able to tell people on the ground in Newfoundland and Labrador what was happening in terms of the economy and all this great support that they were getting. And fast forward all this time, and now we're in a very similar boat where we have not diversified our economy. We haven't learned from those lessons of the past. And my role as the Just Transition Coordinator with the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor is to be going around the province collecting stories from workers around the province and to have an understanding of what people's needs and wants are to have a just transition. And at the end of the 2-year project, we're going to be proposing legislation to the province and trying to get that process started, because if it's not led by workers, it's not going to be led by anybody. Just like the collapse of the cod fishery, it wasn't the recovery wasn't led by workers; it was led by a bunch of politicians in Ottawa, and that didn't really go anywhere. And the fear that was in Chris's household that day is the same kind of fear that's in a lot of households in Newfoundland and Labrador right now. So my question for the politicians is, what are you going to do to prevent a collapse of, the end of oil is coming. You can't prevent the end of oil, but we can plan we can have a plan in place to prevent the economic disaster that we have already experienced in this country, or in this province rather, in 1992. So my question to you is, what are you going to do to mitigate the impact of the collapse of the oil industry on workers in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Thank you so much, Daniel. I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. Is the sound still coming through online?
No, it's not.
Is it coming through now?
We were trying to mute participants.
Mm-hmm.
That was successful, but we also lost the audio at the same time.
Oh, that's because my laptop is set up as a participant. Yeah. Hang on there. Cassie, are you signed in as yourself? Technical issue here, folks. Just background noise. So what happened was this laptop got muted too. So apologies to the folks online for that.
Maybe just a reminder that they could also be watching the live streams by the AV.
Yes, the Indie is live streaming as well.
So if you ever lose us, you can find us there.
Is it okay again now, everyone? Could I get a signal from someone online? Okay, all right. We are okay here. Now, I'm just...
You're getting blamed now
for the folks who are now the hosts of the Zoom meeting, could you let me know if Brenda Walsh is present in the participants list? Because Brenda is a candidate who may be joining us online.
Brenda is not there.
Okay, no worries. Awkward. All right, so we've got 2 speakers left and 2 candidates left. So the 2 candidates will respond to one to Daniel and one to Jude. And the last speaker is me, so I won't have a candidate response, but that's okay. You can all let me know what you thought later.
We can share.
Okay.
I'm before you. So they can have to respond to both of us. Double questions is up for the challenge.
It's not a bad idea. Okay, responding to Daniel, we have Caleb.
Awesome. Hello, my name's Caleb. I'm the Green Party candidate for Cape Spear, and if you can't tell, I'm young, so I feel kind of really passionate. This is a really cool thing you guys are doing. I'm really excited about this, and I just want to say your friend's dad's response to seeing an Ottawa politician was absolutely valid. That's the response that you probably should have most of the time. But I think we've seen the failure of the federal government in approaching Newfoundland's cod industry. We've seen large corporations, foreign corporations, allowed to completely destroy Newfoundland's cod stock, while smaller local fishermen, inshore fishermen, are completely taken advantage of as the fish population is destroyed, and not at their hands. Well, they're the biggest people affected. It's the small local fishermen who are deeply feeling the effects, who deeply felt the effects of the cod industry's collapse. And it wasn't their fault. They did not have control over it. And for generations, they properly managed their fish stock. It wasn't them who destroyed that. That was the federal government not properly regulating offshore fisheries. And I think that we're going to see something similar going into the future with Newfoundland Industries. Currently, we import so much from so far, and it causes gross, unnecessary environmental damage. Working off the current global economy we have, it's unnecessary. And fundamentally, if we were to localize more stuff to the island, to Canadian industries, we'd see the mitigation of collapse from stuff like the collapse of the oil and gas industry, and we'd see less environmental damage from trade and a lower cost of goods, higher local jobs. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I can advocate for, is localizing more industries to Newfoundland in that way.
Thank you, Caleb, Green Party candidate for Cape Spear. I think I'm going to take Jude's suggestion, and Jude and I will both share our remarks before we call on the final candidate.
Fun speed round.
Okay, so how about Jude? I'll introduce you, and Jude? I'll introduce you, and when you are finished, you can introduce me if you want. It's kind of awkward to introduce myself. Our next community speaker is Jude Benoit. Jude is a Mi'kmaq youth who lives in Rabbit Town. They are a consultant with the Mixed Coast Collective. As an Indigenous youth and a voting member of St. John's East, they care deeply about climate-impacted policies and want to know what candidates believe about these issues. Welcome, Jude.
Gwe Deluesi Jude Benoit, and I'm going to step back because I can't see myself. Is that good? I am on there, and I am on there. So, good. Gwe Deluesi Jude Benoit. I'm from Ukdamaguk. For those of you that don't know, it literally translates to that foggy island over there, which I think is a really accurate response. But I do want to bring up that word because I will say that as a Mi'kmaq person, I can see the clear connections to what has driven us to be a province whose one of their larger industries is fishing. Fishing, as you know, is a reason why a lot of Mi'kmaq people who are nomadic would come back and forth from this island since the beginning of our creation. And it's one of the things that I'm proud to say that I grew up in. I grew up in a fishing family, a lobster family on the west coast of Newfoundland. And unfortunately, when I think about the modern problems, the tariffs, the pricing, and climate, I really worry about the future of my family's business. I worry about my brother who gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning and goes out and works that ocean to feed his family. But I'm not here to talk about now. I want to take us back into the past of tiny Jude. So I was in a Native family, let's keep that in mind. But I was a vegetarian from a very young age. I was obsessed with that movie. It was the 90s, the one with whales. Free Willy, yes. I watched it over and over and over again, and I was obsessed with, I'm going to save the whales, I'm going to save the fish, I'm going to save the bears. And I was definitely that child who, even though I grew up in a fishing family and a family that lived off the land, would cry when I had to catch a fish. And at one point in my whale obsession, I remember being called down to help harvest and process something, and it was a whale. And I just remember like kind of sobbing and falling apart at this, this cultural moment and thinking, this beautiful animal, this sacred animal, the cebu, like why would we do this? And there's a bunch of reasons why Indigenous people take parts of traditional hunts and traditional catch. We use every single part of that animal. We give it a reason. We thank it for feeding the community and for providing us with sustenance. And as you know, if you're from a rural community in Newfoundland or from up north in Labrador, the food prices are expensive. So it really comes down to survival. And I didn't really understand it then, but I understand it now. What I don't understand is that all of the proposed offshore oil projects and all of the current offshore oil projects, literally, like for those of you that don't know, they explode the ocean. and they do it quite regularly to try to explore for where we're going to have these projects. And there's a lot of also industrial sound of carrying out these projects of offshore oil and gas. And it definitely impacts and harms the whale population. I'm thinking in particular of a project, proposed Bay Nord project, that would be impacting one of my favorite whales, the northern bottlenose whale. That kind of looks like a very chunky dolphin. It's really cute. And child me would just be in tears to know that for one industry that's not even sustainable, an industry that takes generations of people away from their families, and then disposes of workers when they can no longer work, that industry is also in charge of harming our whale population. So I guess my question for you, and it's a complex question because it's tied into a lot of things: Indigenous sovereignty, the future of the oil industry, transitioning into green new jobs. But my question for candidates would be, how would you propose, what would make it, would anything make that worth it? Would any amount of oil or any amount of projects or any amount of jobs make torturing and killing an animal like that, a sacred animal, worth it? Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. I've changed my mind. We're going to have the candidate respond directly to Jude's remarks and that question. Very. And our final candidate, Otis. I still gotta, 2 minutes, Otis. And Otis is the Green Party candidate for St. John's East.
Well, to answer your question, I would say there's nothing. there is nothing that makes that worth it. This is one of the other aspects of, it's not so much climate change, but it's the industry which is fueling climate change. It's having other effects as well. It is affecting our sea life. Other aspects of it are affecting our land life. I think one of the things that we have to do, and this has got to be on day one, we have to declare that the climate crisis is a national emergency, and from that, give it the high priority that it needs. Whether that's forming the youth climate corps, whether it's forming like sort of an adult version, the civil defense corps, which the Green Party has also proposed. One of the other things as well is, like, people will ask, where are you going to get the money to do this? And it's like, okay, well, the oil companies are massive. As you point out, what were they asking for the youth climate corps? 4%. Yeah, which is like 4%, I think, of what we're giving them in subsidies. Like, okay, there's money right there. Stop subsidizing these. And to that end, I would like to have them stopped, but I think we have it for a while. While we still have those industries, tax them like any other large money-earning, like banks, financial institutes. Put windfall taxes on them. Support motion 150, which is to place windfall taxes on them like any other organization. Sorry, what was I was going to say? No, sorry, I forgot. I had another point I was going to make there. But no, it is a massive issue. But I think we have to give it priority. Unfortunately, right now we have, with the tariff wars going on, that's the latest thing which puts stuff in the back, on the back bench. But
The good old clap out, graceful. Thank you, Otis. So, even though we don't have a candidate to respond to me, I'm still going to share my remarks, and maybe I'll save my question to open up the Q&A. I'll still include it at the end because it's written in there. But I'll re-ask it when we come back for the Q&A after the break, if that is cool.
That's fair.
And here,
Jude's going to introduce me, so.
It would be awkward to introduce yourself.
It would be.
Everyone else got the special treatment. Okay, hello. Leah Movell is a community organizer living in their hometown of Garnish on Ukdomaguk Burin Peninsula. They are the volunteer coordinator at the Social Justice Co-op NL and the Atlantic Regional Organizer for the Youth Climate Corps campaign. Leah is a queer and non-binary woman, a proud auntie, as well as an avid gardener and an anti-capitalist. Clap.
Thank you, Jude, and thank you to all of our speakers and all of our candidates. I want to share a story with you about why the Youth Climate Corps vision for good green jobs resonates with me. I feel hopeful when I think of the power it has to offer dignified and meaningful work to generations of young people. I see climate and jobs get pitted against each other, and as a climate activist, even get asked if I think or care about jobs. It's a false choice. We can choose a life-affirming approach to both. I want to see both climate and jobs policies that reflect reverence and care for life, for the well-being of people and the planet. We are asked to give so much of ourselves to our jobs under capitalism. One of my earliest memories is hiding behind the armchair in my parents' living room, my mom and brother hiding behind the couch, waiting for my dad to return from another 3-month stint on the lake boats in Ontario. Before everyone had a cell phone, we were unsure exactly when he'd arrive. Sometimes we'd be hiding for a while, and my brother or I would fall asleep in our hiding spot, despite our excitement, and we'd miss the big surprise when he finally opened the door. My dad would be home for 2 or 3 weeks before he'd embark on another 3 months on the lakes. When I was 4, he quit that job, fearing he was missing out on too much. He took whatever work he could get on small family enterprises, close to home. Things were tight sometimes, but as a family, we spent so much time together, especially when my dad was off work and home all winter. He taught us all the things he loved to do: hunt, fish, cut wood, and garden. When I was 11, we got our cabin, and for several years, we were there more often than not. My mom told me recently that when we got the cabin, my dad told her, "These are the good old days. We have to enjoy them, because I don't think I'll live to see 60 with the conditions I worked in on those boats." I'm so grateful for those years. My dad's premonition was eerily accurate, and he died in 2022 at age 59. He died because he worked in an environment where maximizing profit mattered more than his well-being. Several men in my hometown of Garnish worked on these boats with my dad in the 80s, and most aren't alive today, many dying in their 50s. A few of the faces among billions of people around the world who are chewed up by capitalism, a system that reveres profit and creates death and destruction in its wake. I felt sick writing this, and I had doubted whether I'd be able to share it because it's so enraging and it's so devastating. We are told to be grateful for jobs and expected to sacrifice our health, bodies, time with our families, the planet that sustains us. What are we gaining from any of it? We are in a society that's so drunk on profit-seeking that the earth, our mother, is being pushed to her brink, all for wealth that is only ever seen by an elite few. I want to vote for government representatives who commit to taking a life-affirming approach to climate and to work. There is endless work to be done restoring the damage of decades of extraction, preparing for increasingly extreme weather events, and building community resilience in the face of climate change. Young people are ready and willing to do this work, and we've come together to demand a dignified wage and working conditions so that we can help build a better future for the people and communities that we love. I ask the candidates here tonight, will you take a life-affirming approach to climate and jobs? It's not too late to prioritize the future. Will you commit an initial investment of $1 billion? Will you fight for a commitment of an initial investment of $1 billion to create the first 20,000 Youth Climate Corps positions and grow the program with demand?
Young people are ready to meet this generational challenge. Are you? Thank you. We are going to now move into the breakout circle portion of the evening. We're going to do that after that. And after our breakouts, we'll have a coffee and tea and mingle break, and then we'll come back for a Q&A. If there are no questions in the box, we may just open the floor to hands and pass a mic around and see what happens. But I'll probably start us off with that question I just asked when we come to that portion. So for our breakout circle discussions, we're all going to get into small groups.
Candidates, you may join tables. I ask you to spread out as much as possible, please.
And
facilitators, can you come to the front for a sec?
There's a breakout group prompt on your table, and there are some guidelines for the group discussions on your table. So your facilitator will have a look at those with you. If you are online, Steph will be facilitating our online breakout group, so just hang tight for a moment.
Beautiful job, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Listen, what are we going to do with all those questions and all that?
I'm going to read some of them out.
Yeah, you going to take those?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Not at all.
Some kind of remote for the TV? This? Okay.
All right, folks. We're going to get back into it.
Do you touch this? Or is it still separate?
What a surprise that I ended up where I did. And science.
All right. If we could all make our way back to our seats and try to lower the ambient volume of the room, that would be beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I told a bit of a fib and I said that we would have time for the breakout groups to do share backs, and that's when I thought that there wasn't going to be any questions in the bag, but it turns out the break is when people put their questions in the bag. So we're going to stick to our planned schedule and start our Q&A, but I'm sure there were lots of really good, juicy things said in your breakout groups, and our friend Cassie over at this table, Cassie can wave, Cassie is working on putting together a document that captures everything that was said in the town hall. So if you have notes or if you have things on your mind from your breakout groups that you want to make sure makes it in to the notes document for this evening, please see Cassie. And after we finish up, see Cassie, and Cassie will give you her email to send those to her.
We already have a table that submitted their notes, so if you're competitive, you're already in second place, guys.
And Jude, I see, is bringing up the question bag. That's great. And we'll be going to Steph for some questions from our online participants periodically as well. Okay, so I will start with my, thank you, Jude. I will start with my question from earlier. All right, so my question to the candidates, and it's kind of a three-parter, but it's all along the same theme, so hopefully it won't be too much to metabolize and answer. Will you support an initial commitment of $1 billion? Will you fight for an initial commitment of $1 billion to create a youth climate corps, the first 20,000 positions of a youth climate corps? And part two, will you support and demand a program that grows with demand and that remains fully public in partnership with Indigenous nations, municipalities, and provinces? We don't want just any youth climate corps. We want one that centers Indigenous knowledge and sovereignty, and one that is rooted in justice. And will you support a program that totally rejects fossil fuel expansion? So, are we clear on what the question is? Should I repeat it? Will you fight for a youth climate corps, the initial $1 billion investment to create the first 20,000 positions? Will you fight for a program that grows with demand and remains fully public in partnership with Indigenous nations, municipalities, and provinces? And will you fight for a program that rejects fossil fuel expansion? So I'm going to give each candidate a minute to answer, and then we'll move on to our first question from the bag, then we'll do a question from online. If we have time at the end, if anyone in the room didn't put a question in the bag, hopefully we'll be able to get to you. So, I'm just gonna hand it over to the candidates in random order based on who is closest to me right now, which is Sam. Sam, give me a moment to get my time.
Okay, thank you. Do you just have a minute?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. So the first part of the question, in terms of the $1 billion, yes, I would of course be advocating for that. I think it's a very important initiative. But I do also just want to take a second on that. Oh, a minute. But there's 2 empty seats next to me. The Conservative candidate has left. The Liberal Party didn't show up today. And unfortunately, those are the parties that make the decisions about these sorts of things. I would like there to be an alternative. I'd like it to be one of us up there, to be honest with you. But historically in this country, that's not how it goes. And I think what we're starting to notice here is that perhaps that we cannot fully be relying on this federal government to do the things that we need to be doing. We're all talking and trying to come up with solutions to the climate crisis. This is the work that we actually have to continue to be doing outside of an election cycle, right? We're starting to see that right now, because we're seeing our federal politicians evaporate, okay? So, thank you. So there's more, I don't know, I'm over time though, but
10 seconds.
10 seconds. And yes, Communist Party advocates for full indigenous sovereignty of nations. We need to be granting indigenous people true authority over the decisions that are made about our climate. Please read our platform if you have the time. Thank you.
And you can go ahead and pass the mic to Mary.
What was it we said at the independent one? If you're not at the interview, you don't get the job.
Absolutely.
1 minute is really fast, and I know so is me, the activist, and me, the member of the NDP, because I align with the values of and principles of the NDP. And they did pass a motion late in 2023 about a youth climate corps, announcing full support for that. They didn't put an amount of money on it. It was a private member's motion. But they did make an announcement today that supported it to the amount of $500 million. I don't know why it's not $1 billion, but if it's important that it's $1 billion, that would be something I'd certainly advocate for, right? I don't know why that amount came. Maybe it was in light of how much subsidies are getting back from the oil companies. I don't know. We absolutely agree with the other 2 points as well. Fossil fuels, the oil companies themselves even are going to make that decision to leave. They've already said it. So for us to keep wanting to invest and give subsidies to the profitable companies, they're not even putting it in their annual report anymore that they're investing in Newfoundland and Labrador. They're gone on to green energy, they're gone on to Brazil, they're not in Newfoundland and Labrador. My concern, I'll tell you later my concern. Go ahead.
Well,
Otis.
so all 3 questions, I would say unequivocally yes. And other members of the Green Party, including those who are already in office, have also gone forward. I think it's motion 104 that you were mentioning, M104, which Mike Morris also he seconded that one. So yes, we would support that, and I wouldn't if you said it was $1 billion that was needed, if that's what they needed, I would endorse that. If it was higher, I'm surprised it's only that they are only asking for $1 billion, because like as you point out, that is a drop of water in what we're doing with other stuff, which we're moving out of. We should stop. I know we can't turn off the oil tomorrow, as nice as that might be, but we should not be expanding it. You know, we need to the expansion needs to stop, and we need to quickly move into transitioning to other alternatives. And what was the third question?
Rejecting fossil fuel expansion.
Oh, that was the third one. Okay.
Grows with demand. So like you said, we need more than $1 billion, but that's a start.
Yeah. And I think that, was it?
$1 billion in the first year.
$1 billion in the first. Okay, well maybe that's what I was thinking. Okay, so the billion is to start it up. Okay, that might have been what was confusing. But no, I think we do need to expand that and another similar programs to the Youth Climate Corps.
Thank you. Caleb.
I don't want to reiterate too much of what everybody's already said, but absolutely yes to everything my other Green Party candidate said here. But I think this is a really noble initiative. I think the Climate Corps if it could happen, would be a wonderful thing. I've seen countless young people go into the world feeling so lost, and I think an opportunity like this gives people who are concerned about the future an opportunity to make a real difference, being boots on the ground, helping people. I know tons of people who have applied for stuff like wildfire firefighting, the military, and some of them have gotten rejected. And if there was an opportunity for them to make that difference that they're looking to make, which I know there is so many people who want that opportunity, to go in and do something fantastic like this, they would. Every single one of those positions would be filled without a doubt. And I think by people that are passionate, people that want to fill them, and I think, like it's been stated, $1 billion when compared to other industries and other government subsidies is not insane. This is not a crazy request. This is reasonable.
Mike?
Okay, yeah. So actually, to reiterate a bit about something Sam said, I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but electoral reform is also a huge part of the issue. Maybe I'll get a chance to talk about it later, but it's one of the reasons that the Liberals and Conservatives are accountable only to each other, and that's one of the things that's stymieing progress here. But anyway, I'll just finish the bit from Animal Protection Party's platform, because we actually had a plan on how we would implement the transition from day one. So it's got 6 main points. One, obviously, implementing an aggressive carbon pricing mechanism that would encourage rapid adoption of conservation measures, halt the expansion and construction of new pipelines, impose tariffs on goods from nations that don't have a green initiative or carbon pricing measures as aggressive as Canada's. And the big one would be removing all tax incentives and subsidies from animal agriculture and the oil and gas sectors, and rediverting those. So large subsidies for the adoption and development of alternative energy sources implemented through collaboration with local communities. So basically, like a transition like this, you have to overhaul a society's entire energy infrastructure. That's going to create a lot of jobs.
Mike. All right, our first question from our question bag from you all here in the room. One of the biggest climate crises at the moment is the emissions from bombing Palestine. Where does your party stand on defunding genocide? And assuming you agree we should stop doing that, how could we use that funding more productively? 1 minute, you've convinced me, not quite enough, 90 seconds each.
Starts first. Yeah, well, you started first last
Do you
time,
want to
right?
do it this way? Does this work for you folks?
Yeah, sure. If you want to go first every time, I guess.
Yeah, and I would. So, yeah, I guess the Communist Party had its platform about militarization and specifically the genocide in Gaza. We support full boycott, divestment, sanctions, policy amongst all industries within Canada. Canada should never be involved in this genocide economically in any material significant way. We need to basically be boycotting the apartheid state of Israel entirely. Secondarily, the climate crisis is absolutely caused by increased military activity. Military activity has an enormous carbon footprint. And I think that we are one of the only parties asking for a drastic reduction in military spending. This is partially due to the climate crisis. We actually propose to slash 75% of the military budget. That is billions and billions and billions of dollars. I could give you the correct figure right now, but you can just imagine how much money that is and how that could be entirely invested into a sustainable green energy project. The money is there, it exists. We take it out of the military and we put it into where it needs to be at, right? So that we can have a sustainable Canada. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was Stan Creed from the Communist Party. I realize for our people online, I should be telling everyone who is speaking. Next to answer this question, we've got Mary Shortle from the NDP.
Okay, so I'm in full support, and the party is in full support of free Palestine, a two-state solution, to boycott all arms to the state of Israel, even going through the United States. Canada should not be involved. That's it. Also, that Netanyahu should be charged for war crimes, just like in genocide, like the ICJ says. So we're in support of that 100%. If they're spending so much money sending arms or diverting arms through the United States to send, perhaps that money could be used back into climate crisis or to a youth climate core or any of those things that will help protect our environment and all the things we talked about this evening that money could be divested of. But again, we support that 100%.
Thank you to Mary Shortall from the NDP, Otis Crandall from the Greens.
I think probably everyone here that's still here at the panel would totally agree that, with supporting the state of Palestine. I'm not sure if any of you know of the platform Vote Palestine, where you can actually go on there and actually openly declare. I know, Mary, you signed it because I saw your name on it. Some other of the party from our right have not. But no, I think it goes beyond just not supporting them, but also looking at where is money going? That's where the divestment comes in. And we do need to look like, are we investing in like financial institutions like the RBC, who are then where are they investing their money? And we want to know where it's going, because some of it's being used to fund arms companies who are supplying arms to Israel. And I am not pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. I am pro-peace. Wherever it is. Whether that's in Ukraine, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in Asia, and so I think we do need to take a responsibility to not invest in it, but also as a very wealthy country, we need to use that influence to influence other countries, whether they're our allies or not.
Thank you, Otis. And next up we have Caleb from the Greens.
As a nation, we've made promises and we have responsibilities to uphold international law and the agreements that we've made. And I think it's important to show that we don't stand by just witnessing this genocide and standing up for those promises that we've made, fighting for Palestine, fighting for peace and the two-state solution. And I think upholding international law and fighting against, because it made me mad. I know they're not here tonight, but at the debate last week, I think you're here and the Liberal and Conservative candidates refuse to speak on it. And I think it's a serious issue because those are the people that are going to be making the decisions about international law. And if their candidates refuse to even acknowledge it as a genocide or bring up or mention international law, it's a problem. And I don't think we need to talk about how it's obvious. And that's a serious issue that needs to be brought up and confronted.
Thank you, Caitlin from the Greens and Mike from Animal Protection.
Well, in all fairness to Tom and Corey, the answering a question like that probably a bit above their pay grade. It's above my pay grade, but I do have a statement from the party leader. The party leader of the Animal Protection Party, her name's Liz White, and she did make this statement about the war in Gaza. So our party has not taken a formal position and has not signed the Vote Palestine platform. So on this issue, these are my personal comments, Liz White's personal comments. I am deeply troubled by the seizure of innocent hostages in Israel and the unprecedented attacks on Gaza and on Palestinians in the West Bank. I agree that Israel's action in Gaza and the West Bank should be condemned. Watching the families of the hostages is heart-wrenching. Watching the utter devastation in Gaza and the enormous suffering is horrific beyond belief. Both actions on the part of Hamas and Israel should be condemned by the world. War only hurts innocent victims and does not resolve deeply embedded conflicts, such as that between Hamas and Israel. I don't think countries like the U.S. should be supplying arms to Israel, and at the same time, I think that whoever is supplying arms to Hamas should be stopped. Peace talks, not war, must happen, but first the world needs to help rebuild Gaza. Both parties have to accept the two-state solution concept and together work out the framework and process by which that happens.
Thank you, Mike from the Animal Protection Party.
And that's from Liz White.
Next, we will go.
We're actually going to go randomly.
No. Next, we're going to go to Stephanie for a question from online, and we'll start drawing the order randomly now.
This is a really beautiful DMD bag. Everyone say thank you, Alex, our volunteer Alex who brought it.
Thank you, Alex.
And Steph, you'll need to unmute your mic online too.
Okay, so what do presidents plan with regards to preparation of youth for green jobs and preparation for our future, and especially for our young people?
Thank you, Steph. If you could mute your mic again so I can unmute mine.
All the papers the same.
Thanks, Steph. All right, we're going to draw a candidate to answer this question. Did all the candidates hear the question?
I kid you not, it's Sam.
I'm lucky today.
Sam from the Communists.
Do I have 90 seconds?
Yes.
So yeah, how do we, I think we've talked a lot about the ways in which we will ensure green jobs for the future and how that will incorporate young people. But another way that the Communist Party wants to support young people in this sort of empowerment and ensuring that they are a part of this is we actually propose to lower the loading age to 16. I think I don't think there's anybody here who's 16, but like say for example, there was somebody who was 16 and was here and was actively engaging in political dialogue with every candidate and hearing every aspect of it. They are probably more engaged and more cognizant of the political process than 90% of the electorate in this riding. And they should be able to vote. And there's plenty of youth out there who are 16 that definitely know more than the vast majority of people, and that right should be reflected. We need to have youth who are empowered as a part of the political process to actually make the changes that we need to, right? And that should go across a lot of other things. A lot of 16-year-olds are workers, for example, right? So they should also have more democratic rights within their workspaces. That goes for every workspace. Every workspace should be more democratized than it is. And that's certainly in line with communist values. So we need to be empowering youth in those ways, and then we need to be, again, ensuring those jobs through massive public investment in public infrastructure and a green sustainable energy.
Thank you.
All right. Actually, I think that covers it, I'd say.
Thank you, Sam.
Caleb. From the Greens.
As a youth, I think that we're seeing some good moves being made currently, but it's nowhere close to what we can be doing to create jobs for youth. There was an initiative done up in Stephenville for the wind turbines. A gentleman, the company building those turbines put close to, I think it was almost 50 people, maybe a little bit more, through school to get their certificates for welding to go and work and build that upcoming project. I think having initiatives like that, giving young people the opportunity to be funded through school to work on projects that are creating sustainable solutions to current climate issues is one of the biggest things we can do. And that was privately funded. I think if you put government money away from current industries like oil and gas, like that $28 billion or so that we've talked about tonight, that's a lot of money that can go into a lot of other spaces than just the Climate Corp mission that we're kind of all here for. I think that if you push that towards other opportunities for sustainable growth and young jobs, it creates a serious opportunity for change, because they are the youth. We're the people that are going to have to deal with this the longest, and we're the people with the most instability going forth into this climate crisis. Yeah.
Who do we got next, Jude?
I'm so excited.
Doesn't this make it a little more fun?
Otis.
Otis.
2 greens in a row.
Otis from the Greens.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you got to hear from someone that's young. Now, someone that's not young. I like that better. And it's quite relevant that you've got, well, these 2 guys are in one in Cape Spear, but you've got at least one young person from St. John's East. Because, okay, I've probably got more of my life behind me than ahead. But these guys, they got, and a lot of people in this room, you got more of your life ahead of you. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're going to inherit this problem, which is still growing. And the least I think that we can do is give you guys the tools you need to fix that. One of my policies, it's not necessarily a Green Party policy, but it is mine, is that we need to make all education free, including post-secondary. And we also need to put funding into areas that we need, areas of research, such as environmental research, alternative forms of energy. We need these. So we need to be funding, say, okay, do we need a scholarship? Okay, people in these areas that we need, putting scholarship for them. If someone doing a master's or PhD research on these topics, we need to ramp up the funding for these things here. So that these people, and we got just in this riding here, we've got at Memorial alone, there's 15 to 20,000 young people. And I'm going to guess that not more than one of them has a great idea of how to fix the problem.
Thank you, Otis from the Green Party. Who do we have next, Jude? Mike from Animal Protection.
Yeah, okay, so actually, free education is part of the Animal Protection Party's platform. We want to increase funding for post-secondary and eventually transition to free education. So there are some European countries that do that now. But educational reform is also important to me because I had a really tough time with public education. So eventually I got an autism diagnosis only as an adult, and that's why everything sucked for me for so long. And if there had been more knowledge and more supports back when I was young, then things could have happened differently. But you know, the reason that I'm up here at all is because, I guess, to just be an example, if an autistic dude like me can do this and just show up here, like any of you guys could do it too. So I want the young people to get up here with me, basically, and going forward. And yeah, that's, I guess, as well. So overhauling an entire society's infrastructure is a massive undertaking. It's going to require a lot of research. It's going to require a lot of retraining, a lot of re-education. So, and Canada especially, our land resources are very underdeveloped. We have so much space for wind, solar, hydro power, more than anywhere else in the world probably. So it's going to be a lifetime just developing that new infrastructure.
Thank you to Mike from the Animal Protection Party.
I don't need to drop those on.
That's it.
Next up is Mary from the NDP.
Yeah, all the good ideas are already talked about, so I'll just reiterate some of them. I mean, the Youth Climate Core, the three pillars are obviously very important to good sustaining jobs and climate action and taking care of the earth and taking care of emergencies. And so that's really important. I agree, post-secondary education should be free. And as we work towards it being free, the least we can do right now is take away the interest on student loans, because nobody should be denied the right to an education because they can't afford it. And that's really important. The other thing that's important to me, very personally to me as well, is that we're in a world now where young workers are more and more working precarious jobs, they're working gig jobs, they're having to work 2 or 3 or 4 jobs at shitty minimum wages in order to make ends meet. We need to make sure that we have living wages, guaranteed basic income for people, that we have the ability to unionize when we want to, and that those are good, strong unionized jobs, that the minimum wage is higher, and that other labor laws protect workers and their rights, not just if they can't unionize, then with precarity and gig workers, so that they're at least protected by the minimum standards and workers' comp laws and all those things. So we got to make sure that workers are protected and well paid and able to invest in things like their own house and the things that we all need in life.
Thank you, Mary, from the NDP.
We'll do final question. I've got it right here. And that'll take us to about 9:30, which is our finish-up time. How would you ensure new Canadians have access to employment in fields trained and certified in their home countries, particularly skilled workers and climate migrants? First up, we've got Otis from the Green Party.
Well, one thing I've said before, and I know other people from the party have said, if people are good enough to work here, they should be good enough to live here. So do away with the temporary worker program and make these people, bring them in as permanent residents. If you know, that way they can also bring their families. They're not going to be isolated and all the other problems, potentially exploited in that way. So that's one of the things we need to do. We also need to, and this is something we've seen, but it's very slow progressing. We need to have programs in place so that people come over. Particularly if we invite them over as a resident, you know, an immigrant with a certain profession, that they're able to work in those professions. You know, this is particularly with the medical field. We have doctors in this country. We need doctors in this country, but these doctors can't work because they didn't get to do a residency. So I think we need these programs. I just wanted to add, because it's the last round of thing here, I'm going to contradict two of my colleagues here. You know, it's not the conservatives and liberals that run the country, and just because they have the majority does not mean if you put one of any of us small groups up there, you only need one of us, or two of us, or three out of all 300 something to get influence in the government.
Thank you to Otis from the Green Party. Next, we've got Sam from the Communist Party.
I just want to get this. Can you repeat the question?
How would you ensure new Canadians have access to employment in their fields, trained and certified in their home countries, particularly skilled workers and climate migrants?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the certification processes that exist are meant to just be, it's sort of arbitrary. It doesn't really make any sense. And what it really is doing is it's just adding another barrier to the immigration process, to make the immigration process just a little bit more inaccessible so that there is like an acceptable amount of immigration, right? When that's not really the approach that we need to be taking, especially given the climate crisis. We are going to be getting more migrants as the climate continues to deteriorate. And so we need to be preparing now. And how do we, how do we communicate and talk? I was speaking in my outbreak group just about how we need to be having effective cross-cultural communication. We have a lot of migrants coming in who have lots of knowledge that we simply, as Canadians, do not have. We do not have, and so that's an opportunity for us to have international collaboration to come up with much better and more diverse solutions to our climate crises, right? So I would say in terms of getting those certifications, right, we need to just acknowledge them as they are. You're certified to do this work. You should be able to do that work. It is that simple, and reduce the barriers that exist for immigrants that have no basis in reality. There's no reason for them to be there. So that's something that we need to be doing, and we need to be preparing for more migrants to be coming here as the climate gets worse. And if we are prepared for that as a community, then we can actually effectively use our human resources as a labor force to address what's coming forward.
Thank you to Sam from the Communist
Party. Mary Shortle from the NDP.
Thank you. If we're going to ask people from around the world to come here and live here and work here, then we need to also provide the supports that are needed for them to be able to work and live and play here just like everybody else. So we need to make sure we have those supports in place. That means good infrastructure, good public services, good access to information in the languages they speak so they understand their rights just like everybody else. So the labor laws and collective agreements and other things should be written in the languages of the people who work and live here. Foreign credentials is also problematic. We need to make sure that the recognition of foreign credential is simplified, so it doesn't take so long for those credentials to be recognized. So prior learning recognition programs have proven that there's other ways of doing it besides waiting for a million years. We also, migrant workers are coming here. They need to be treated exactly the same as other workers. They don't need to surrender their passports to their employers, and they need to make sure that they can bring their families, and that they fall under all the same rules and regulations that everybody works under, and not be exploited.
From the NDP. Who's next to you? Mike, from the Animal Protection Party.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, this is
a bit outside the scope of the Animal Protection Party's platform right now. But I can give my own thoughts, I guess. So I am doing an education degree, and one of the things you learn right away is the level of bureaucracy that exists in the education system. So it is a very complicated and complex issue, and I'm not sure that immigration reform is the entire source of the problem or the solution here. It has to do with the bureaucracy in the education system and with the quality control mechanisms they have. So in order to accept, to verify foreign credentials, they have to somehow integrate that to the standard of bureaucracy in our education system, and then you get into a whole lot of legal issues, especially for skilled trades where there are legal requirements for certifications. That's one of the main issues. And the problem is that to get around that, it would almost necessarily involve lowering regulations or establishing a common set of regulations internationally. And so it has to do with adopting globalism which has its own pros and cons.
Mike from the Animal Protection Party. And last we'll go to Caleb from the Greens.
Mike kind of started talking about it, but I think people forget when you're talking about these skilled workers coming to Canada, it's not just doctors, lawyers, people with these more white-collar educations. It's trades workers. It's maritime workers. I met a gentleman a few weeks ago. He was working as a security guard at the mall when previously back home he was a Ukrainian refugee. He was a high-ranking maritime something. I don't know the language, but and he's had to wait close to 2 years just to get those recertifications that he's had for his whole life. And I think that's a tragedy if we're struggling so hard on skilled workers to have these people not being able to work in the professions that they love, and then they came here and then they pitched themselves on to move to Canada, the skills that make them who they are. If they come here and they're not able to utilize those and support the economy and support Canada and themselves and their family to their fullest ability, it's a tragedy. And I think streamlining the education process and recertifications for those people is essential in making sure that they're properly compensated at their jobs, making sure that they receive the proper acknowledgement and are able to work in the professions that they know and love. Yeah.
Thank you, Caleb, from the Greens. That concludes our Q&A session. So I just want to say a couple of quick thank yous. Thank you to the guest speakers. Thank you to the incredible team of volunteers who made this event happen. Thank you to the candidates who showed up, and thank you to everyone in the room who showed up. Thank you to the National Campaign for Youth Climate Corps, to Fridays for Future St. John's, to the Mercy Center for Ecology and Justice, to the media that are here, and thank you to the Small Change Fund, who made the event possible and made the snacks possible, and I also wanted to say this gathering might be over, but the election is Monday. So if you don't see your candidates here, all of your candidates, reach out to them. Ask them what they think about a just transition, what they think about a youth climate corps, what they think about Palestine, what they think about racism. Again, you can find the Anti-Racism Coalition candidate questionnaire on their Facebook page. If they're your candidates, ask them your questions. Don't let them off the hook just because they couldn't be bothered to show up here tonight. And I'll pass it over to my good friend Jude to close us out.
Oh, what a night. First, I would like to say thank you to anybody under the age of 40. Apparently, we're youth, right up until that age. So yeah, you know, I thought turning 30 I'd be out, but no, they just keep dragging me back in. So if you're under 40, give yourself a round of applause tonight because it's incredibly brave. It's incredibly brave when youth come together to do these things. You know, we're showing that we care about an issue, and I really want to take that the volunteer thanks that we gave earlier and just stretch that out a little bit. Context: volunteers have been working on this for a whole month and a half. Countless meetings, countless story coaching, all of it. And I think that it's incredible what they were able to come up with tonight. I want to specifically shout out Alex, who has been running back and forth in the kitchen all night. Applause for Alex. For Kate, who was sitting at the registration desk and getting all the info on the way in. For Sister Mary, and for the great work that they do over the Mercy Center. And for every other volunteer, Alex, other Alex, everybody online, Steph and Jillian for online facilitation, Cassie, you did so much to help with tech. Shout out to all of them, and thank you all so much for coming. If you would like to participate further past this, I would say number one, vote. If you don't know how, if you've never done it, if you don't know where your polling station is, message me on Facebook. I'll go with you. I'll be your buddy. I'll walk with you to the polls. Unless you're outside of St. John's East, then you're on your own. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, there's still time. You can still do that, and you can still volunteer in great organizations like the YCC and like the other organizations that were represented tonight. Friday for Future, yay! And yeah, thanks for coming.
And take some stickers.
Oh, and take some stickers. Take some stickers. Take the stickers.
We've got
Give them
these
to
beautiful
people.
stickers. Please take them. They're free.
Hey, everybody online. I don't know if you're still with us, but thanks so much.